and biodiesel at different fueling stations around the region. And so really glad to be here today and hoping that we can have a nice productive conversation, and which will hopefully lead to more people putting deploying biodiesel and EV charging at more locations around the region. So, and that's really important for us. One of the reasons why we're pushing this is not just because it's Earth Day. We've been doing this since January. But the big push is in our area, you just don't see enough of these uh, uh, items, both EV charging and biodiesel at our local fueling stations, especially in Northern Virginia, especially in DC and also in parts of Maryland as well. So hopefully with these efforts, we'll continue to learn some good things, and we're able to make an impact, which is really important. So we're really looking forward to connecting with many of you. There are a lot of incentives to help businesses, both organizations, both for-profit and nonprofit, to deploy this technology. And so we want to be able to share with you some of the incentives that are available for people. So we're really excited about you all being here today. We have a really good lineup of speakers today, and we'll jump right into it today with some of our speakers. But before we do that, I wanted to mention to you all, we're going to be down at the Washington Nationals today outside the stadium at 151 M Street Southeast today from 4:30 to 6:45, showcasing all different type of vehicles. It's a big lot out there, and we'll be out there this afternoon. So come by and check us out, and hopefully you'll be encouraged and encourage us as well to keep doing this good work. We also are gearing up for our golf tournament, annual golf tournament, the Ron Flowers golf tournament. That's coming up in June. And so you can sign up, get a team. I see Mr. Jackson, our new member, on here. So hopefully you'll bring 10 people, Mr. Jackson, to play. That's Thursday, June 27th from at 8:30 a.m. At 8:30 a.m. at Oak Creek Golf Course. So that should be pretty exciting. And some of the proceeds will be used this year to give some scholarships to some high school students, so who will be graduating, some going to college, some going to trade schools, and all that good stuff. So and so we're really looking forward to that. So I want to move on, and I want to give I know is Emmanuel or Joe on? I'm trying to see.
Joe's here.
Okay, so today we're going to start with Joe from Green Spot. He's going to talk about some EV charging and some of the work he's doing to get EV charging at fueling stations. I see a few folks in the fueling station area. And so we are looking forward to hearing his remarks. He also is one of our partners on our Mid-Atlantic Electrification Project, where we're deploying level 2 chargers and level 3 chargers at different locations. They must be available to the public. So we would love for you all to help us identify some sites. And hopefully we get a few sites today, right? and that we can put to work. So let's give Joe a good welcome. He's a Jersey guy. I'm a Western New York guy, now Marylander, and glad that he can be here. And hopefully some of you can take advantage of this. I would say that whether you have a fleet garage or you have a public or private fueling station, I'm pleading with you, let's make sure we can deploy these two fuels at those locations. So without further ado, Joe, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and appreciate you having me. I'm Joe. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of GreenSpot. GreenSpot, as a little introduction, is based out of, as Antoine mentioned, Jersey City. We currently are in 15 states in the U.S. We are a network operator similar to the larger names in the industry like Tesla, ChargePoint, Blink. We're the same as them. We own and operate charging ports. We're known as, the industry likes to call it a CPO or a charge point operator. So we serve our own customers. We have over 10,000 drivers using our equipment on a regular basis, and we continue to spread our infrastructure throughout the U.S. For property owners, we're working with both the private and the public sector. So we bid projects and we win large municipalities such as Boston, Cincinnati, Columbus. We won Trenton, which is the capital of New Jersey. So we're very familiar with that process, but we have hundreds of private clients as well, that whether it's fueling stations or service centers, or we do lots of multifamily and parking garages and commercial property like workplace. We serve pretty much any type of property that has parking. So our program is fairly simple. We are supported in what we do through the program that Antoine and his team and the Mid-Atlantic Clean Cities Coalitions run. That's involved with a federal grant that was awarded years ago, and it allows us to install EV charging infrastructure with the support of the federal government throughout DC, Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia for that particular grant. But like I said, we do work all over the country, so you may own property in other states, and happy to help out with that as well. In terms of fueling stations and fleets and anything like that that we can support, we have various different programs to support those types of properties and operations. And happy to kind of dive into details there, but we offer a wide range of level 2 AC chargers as well as DC fast chargers or superchargers as they call them, and various different speeds and applications depending on your needs and the type of property and where it's located. So the good thing about what we do is most often we are trying to find a way to cover the capital expense for the property owner. So if that's of your interest and you'd rather not put the money up front to build out the infrastructure, then that's something that we typically are able to do. And then from there, we, just like any CPO or operator would do, we operate, we maintain, we provide customer support, and keep that equipment running for a long time into the future. When you need to expand, you need more, or if you have more properties over time, we'll continue to add onto that property, whether that's through additional parking spots or increase the speed of the infrastructure that's already there, and continue to develop it over the term. And then since you're giving us the space, we share our revenue with you. We cover all of the operating expenses, unless it may be for a fleet operation, and there's sort of different levels of what you may need. So you may want to purchase energy in advance to use for that fleet, and we can help out with those programs as well. So we serve kind of a lot of use cases and different applications, but that's generally what we're doing and what we're ultimately we're set out to try to increase EV adoption and to give EV drivers more options when it comes to charging their EVs, and then also help businesses convert their fleets to electric, and support them with the infrastructure that they need to keep that fleet in operation. So with that said, Antoine, happy to open it up for any questions, or if you want to save that to the end.
Yeah,
But I
why don't we
appreciate it.
save the questions for the end, and we'll go over to our illustrious chair of our board, Jill Hamilton. If she's ready, then we'll go over to Darrell Jones after that. Then we'll take some questions. Jill, are you ready?
Sure.
President, if I could properly introduce you, if okay.
Oh,
Jill
sure.
is also the president and founder of SESI, a major grant writing, project management consulting firm. She's been able to generate over $1 billion in investment for businesses and nonprofits and governmental institutions. And she also happens to be the chair of our board of directors, and always trying to figure out putting strategies together, help raise capital for projects. And she does a lot in the biodiesel area, but she also has been very successful in winning organizations and companies grants in everything from solar to wind to electrification as well. So Jill, the floor is yours. Thanks for being here as always.
Thanks, Antoine. Certainly a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for having me. But also wanted to tell you that I plan to be at the event today. We'll see you down there, down at Nat Stadium. But also would like to tell folks I plan to be at the golf tournament as well, and I'm not a golfer. So I'm not sure if I'll put together a team, but I'll definitely support, and because I would slow everybody down, I'm sure. Anyway, not that you guys would hold that against me. I know you guys are all good people. So let me start with, hopefully you can see my screen that doesn't have my notes on it. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Just checking, just to make sure. I'm gonna go through some presentations that I just speak better from slides. As Antoine said, thank you for the introduction. I've been doing grant writing for and business development for alternative fuels my entire career, over 30 years, and 25 of those have been with sustainable energy strategies. And this little picture here we're seeing with this glass cup full of coins is just representative of how much infrastructure funding there's out there today. A lot more than just pennies. So we hope that you'll have some questions along the way, and we can help you find some of those funding opportunities. And I need to make sure that this resumes so it'll carry along. And if for some reason my slides aren't moving forward, let me know. So we're going to talk about why biofuels, although I do have a couple slides in here about funding opportunities for electric vehicles as well. We're going to talk about the future of low carbon fuels. A lot of retailers already have existing assets in this space, and we want to use them. What is an HBIP grant and other funding opportunities, and what's in it for you, and what to expect from some of the application process. And I want to give a shout out to Maryland Grain Producers, one of my clients, along with Clean Fuels Alliance America as well. And of course, our Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition for the support of this presentation. So why biofuels? Historically, biofuels have been touted as a way to reduce dependence on foreign oil and contribute to energy security and air quality. But now it's being seen as more of a rural economic development, in addition to all of those other things, as well as trying to reduce carbon emissions today rather than waiting for other technologies to come in the future. So we have over 275 million registered vehicles, light duty vehicles on the road as of 2023. And a lot of those, a majority of those are demanding liquid fuels. So we want to, and we'll be on the road for decades. So we want to impact those vehicles as we transition to net zero vehicles. And of course, there's about 7 million registered diesel vehicles, passenger diesels, as well as 11.4 million heavy duty diesels on the road. Just by comparison, there's about 2 million electric vehicles on the road. So we've got quite a few that can use these liquid fuels. So we want to do that today, not wait till tomorrow. Although we should be making investments in electric vehicles, don't get me wrong. I want to see all of that. I'm an all of the above strategist. I want to see them all. But today I'm going to be talking about biodiesel and ethanol and a little bit about renewable diesel. So most people should, by now probably know what biodiesel is, but it's basically a chemical process reaction between alcohol, methanol, and fats and oils. A lot of restaurant grease. About 95% of our restaurant grease is recycled into biodiesel today, and that fuel must meet ASTM D96751. Similarly, renewable diesel, often these names are used interchangeably, but they're really not. Renewable diesel is produced similar to the hydrocracking process for gasoline and diesel fuel. It's under heat and pressure, but it uses the same feedstocks as biodiesel. And ethanol, I think most of you know the phrase, drink the best and drive the rest, right? So ethanol is made from the fermentation process of corn predominantly, and then wheat and other biomass materials are starting to come on strong as we start to pay for our carbon intensity. And it's used to lower toxins in our atmosphere and to increase octane, and you must meet ASTM D4806. All right. And then let me start with ethanol. So today I don't think a lot of retailers are aware that E15 and E85 is cheaper, and we're already using it in our conventional E10, our regular gasoline, a 10% ethanol, to lower its costs. But E85 is about 88 cents cheaper, as you see in this graphic on the upper right, compared to E10. And then the stations have been growing dramatically over the last decade. Nearly doubled the number of E85 stations over the last decade, and almost all of the E15 stations have come on since 2014. So it's fairly new technology, but or application, and we now have about a little over 3,000 E15 stations and about 6,000 of the E85 stations, hopefully at the same locations too. All right. So what is in it for you? As a consumer and a retailer, you're going to save money at the pump. And that's going to drive economic stimulation in your local economy. It creates jobs here in the United States, and it lowers our healthcare costs. All a win-win for all of us. So it provides consumers a choice at the pump. You know, historically, we haven't had a choice at the pump. It's just, you know, we get two, well, maybe mid-grade. So 87 and the higher octanes, but now 88 octane gives you a choice that we might not have had in the future or in the past. It's less expensive, as I mentioned. E15 is about 20 cents cheaper. And as I mentioned before, 88 octane or 85, flex fuel or E85 is about 88 cents cheaper on average. It's a great value, it's less toxic, and it lowers our petroleum imports, just re-emphasizing that. All right. Okay, and I just threw up this is important for retailers to know that signs matter. You get about a 50% increase in your fuel volume sales if you market the price as lower price on that street sign. Last year alone, we added about 400 stations nationally, which is about a 15% increase. And of those, 254 were standard pumps. That means that they're under the canopy. So it's where people are going to fill up anyway. They're getting used to seeing it right next to those other fuels. And it's saving about 20 billion annually for customers. That's huge. I put this together just so you could see. This is Prime the Pump on the right here. All these stations are where we have E15 stations. So as you can see, there's quite a few of them, and all those different names in there is to make you comfortable that this isn't something new that you're just having to get used to. It's really becoming standard. And on the right is a footprint of course, you should recognize this as our metropolitan area. So we already have quite a few, but we need more because we want to really be aggressive about decarbonization and getting cleaner fuels out there. This is just another way of saying if these retailers didn't feel like the fuel quality was in check, then they wouldn't be making these investments. But fuel quality is important, and it's safe for your car, safe for you to use, and I'm just throwing it up there to make sure you're confident that they wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't already safe. So that we've learned a few things along the way in adding E15 to our tanks and distribution and things that not to do. We don't, even though I've been using the word E15 here, we often don't call it E15. We call it regular unleaded, regular 88 or 88 unleaded. So it's trying to make it a little more transparent to the consumers. Try not to make it look different. This picture here that has the E15 in red can be alarming. Red is considered alarming. They're trying to match it to this pump over here, but it's still not a very good way to go about promotion. We're trying to educate retailers to make sure that they aren't doing things that might throw up alarms for the consumers. We want to see at least 50% of your distribution pumps to handle the E15. We don't want to see a one-off because that is harder to promote and gain awareness. You have to be a lot more intentional when filling up rather than seeing it at the hose and the pumping station. So trying to get more than 50% of those dispensers with E15. And then we're going to talk about this next one on the next slide here too, but putting a hose next to E85, that's too similar. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let's see if I can hit resume here. My slide does not want to resume. Come on. There we go. So as you notice in this picture, there's two dispensers here, or two pump nozzles and one down here. We prefer to see this. Unfortunately, in Maryland, they're requiring us to have two hoses because they don't want to miss fueling, but then they've labeled them yellow goes with E85, and I think, I'm not sure if this is E15 with, yeah, it is E15 with the 88. But down here, the E85 and E30 are all on one nozzle. Oops, all on one nozzle. You're going to get a better sale when you do this than when you do this. So we're trying to educate retailers about that. It's moving to biodiesel. Biodiesel represents about 5% of the on-road diesel market today, about 33.7 billion gallons in 2022. That's going to be about 6 billion gallons by the end of the decade, and I think we're going to hit that actually next year. So we're well on track to achieve our industry goals in achieving 6 billion gallons. And some of the new markets coming into play are jet fuel, rail, ocean-going ships, home heating oil, and even emergency electrification. Again, with biodiesel too, fuel quality matters. In the early days of biodiesel, it's only been around for a little over 30 years. So there were some fuel quality issues, but the industry came out with this voluntary quality assurance program called BQ 9000. Now 90% of our producers are meeting that, have been self-certified, or not self-certified, but gone through this voluntary program. And the quality has changed as a result. And we're also seeing that the ASTM standards are much more rigorous than they were years ago. It's gone through many iterations, including changing the shelf life up to 1 year or more. If you do re-anodization, you can get it up to 4 years. So it's much more similar to diesel fuel today. So why are we talking about biofuels so much today? It's really driven around carbon emissions and decarbonization. We hear about the grid being decarbonized. Well, the ethanol and biodiesel industry are taking that very seriously as well. And this is the trajectory that the ethanol industry expects to take. And depending on whether or not some of their technologies come into play earlier, they could hit that in advance of 2050. Some of the things they're doing are things like carbon capture and storage and utilization. I don't know if you've heard about those things, but the Department of Energy is investing heavily in that. And at some point we can talk about that, but that's not the focus of today. So we think by 2030, the ethanol industry will achieve that 70% reduction in GHGs, which isn't too far away. And most people think of the gold standard for carbon policies as the California Air Air Resources Board's implementation of the low carbon fuel standard. And what the reason I'm showing you this is to let you know that biodiesel, ethanol, and renewable diesel account for 80% of those carbon reductions, and they have been for over a decade. Even though electrification is coming on strong, which is good, we want to see more electrification. These fuels are still contributing heavily, and I want you to be able to trust in that. And last year alone, biodiesel and renewable diesel amounted for over 50% of the heavy duty diesel motor pool. Sorry, forgot to shut my phone off. All right, moving on. Ethanol now reduces carbon by 46%, but as I mentioned, they're moving to 70% in the next few years, and that today it amounts in about 42.7 million metric tons of CO2 a year. That's a lot. All U.S. on-road gasoline has either E10 at 10% ethanol or higher if we're switching to these higher blend biofuels. Similarly, biodiesel already reduces carbon by 70% per gallon as a minimum, as an average for the industry, and some are much higher than that, depending on whether or not it's used cooking oil or what have you, or waste oils. And as I mentioned, B5 is being used in diesel pool today, but we're hopeful that that's moving closer to B20, and in some cases, you can come down to see it today in action at the Nats game. The trends are moving to higher blends like B100. Oops, did not mean to do that. Let's see if I can, there we go. So we're here to talk about funding opportunities, and I wanted to focus on the higher blend infrastructure incentive program with regard to the biofuels, but I am going to touch on a few E85 and biodiesel under HBIP, but I'm also going to mention some EV opportunities. So what is HBIP? HBIP is the Higher Blend Infrastructure Incentive Program out of USDA. There's $450 million available through 5 quarters or windows, and we're in the 4th one. Awards are made usually 90 to 180 days later. They're getting them out fairly quickly, so most of the awards are being made within 90 days. And you can apply up to $5 million per window, capped at $15 million per entity. Matching funds are dollar for dollar unless you are a retailer with less than 10 stations or a home heating oil distributor. Then it's a 75% federal match to your 25% organizational match. And those projects can be completed over 36 months, although most of them take, just a quarter. As I mentioned, we're in this 4th window, started in April and ends June 30th. And the next one will start July 1st and then September 30th. So we have 2 more windows. If USDA doesn't spend all the money in those windows, they will come out with another solicitation, but I wouldn't count on it. So who can apply? Transportation fueling facilities, and I'll talk about who those are in a minute, as well as fuel distribution facilities, including your home heating oil distributors. And you have to apply as a single applicant. You can't pool different applicants together. And the applicant must own or have a long-term lease for that property. That determines who's an eligible applicant. Each window has about 68 million for our fueling stations, convenience stores, hypermarts, fleet facilities, including freight and rail and marine, delivery vehicles, and municipalities. Those are transportation fueling facilities. Our fuel distribution facilities are our terminal operators, our middle marketers, our depots, our main midstream operations, and your fuel distribution, anything considered a fuel distribution facility. And then there's 4.5 million for our home heating folks. As I mentioned, anything above 10% ethanol is eligible for ethanol, and anything above B5 or 5% biodiesel is eligible. Renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel are not eligible. So what can you get covered under your, what projects costs can be covered for any of us that are not in California, which is our region, for E85 and B20, or anything that would be classified as higher blend of either of those fuels would be $63,000 per dispenser. And then the tanks would be 168,000 for ethanol and 200,000 for biodiesel. And really, so what does it cover? Tank systems, pumps, auxiliary equipment, lines, gaskets, sealants, construction, replacement, or improvements, fees, permitting, licensing, professional services, but it does not pay for things that you would otherwise have to pay for. So if you're putting in a new facility, a new tank would be required, so it would not be eligible. It's harder for you to get money if you're doing a new facility. They're really targeting existing facilities that they're wanting to replace or upgrade. All right. Let me resume this again. It is competitive, and there's about 175 per quarter awarded. Right now, I'm finding that they're awarding pretty much everything that's eligible until they expend their money. So please do get that in, but they do tell you it is competitive. And a lot of folks that apply ask, well, what are the accounting requirements? It's general accounting principles. They're not asking for anything that you would not otherwise be reporting on. It's volumes and basic accounting principles. And this is a reimbursement program, so you have to show them receipts first. And once you've completed your installation, then it's semi-annual reporting or annual reporting up to 5 years. So start now is my recommendation to you. Organize your team, register with SAM.gov. If you haven't, anybody on this call should register with SAM.gov and have a UEI so that you're ready to do an application at any time for whether it's any alternative fuel. Doesn't hurt to register. But with the USDA application, you need to be registered with the e-authentication or e-auth account. And then you can gain access to your online application. And within any of these projects, you need to have a budget and a project scope and most likely environmental documentation. If you don't already have it, line up your cost share and be prepared to complete an environmental survey. It's about 4 pages. It doesn't take too long. They give you a lot of links in there. And then allow about 2 to 3 months to complete the application process. This is the link down here for USDA's website, and it'll look like this. And you want to click on the how to apply. And then again, they have another one, how to apply. And they've got forms and to the online application, eAuth and SAM.gov there as well. As I mentioned, can't stress this enough. Go ahead and register with SAM.gov and get a UEI number. You can't apply without it, and you have to have that user account to gain access to the online application. The application includes these forms 424, 424A, and 424C, but it's all done online. You need a detailed budget, project estimates, and a technical report. That environmental form has to be submitted, and you get an email to upload, and then you get a criteria score online when you do your online application. You have to include a timeline of events, and what that means is basically when do you think you're going to get the project completed and what are the tasks involved in doing that. And then, of course, you have to acknowledge some of the reporting. So let's move on to some of the other things. There are some tax credits out there for income tax credits for biodiesel. Right now, it's $1 tax credit to those that blend the product. Usually that's upstream. But make sure that that's carried on through to you as well and ask about it. There's also RINs, renewable identification numbers that are wherever it's blended. That RIN gets passed on down to you as well. As a retailer, you want to know that you're getting that value. There's an alternative fuel infrastructure tax credit. This applies to natural gas, propane, hydrogen, electricity, ethanol, and biodiesel blends of at least 20% or more. And I suggest you go for the 30% depreciable costs up to $100,000, which means you have to include prevailing wages. There's also an eligibility requirement to be in one of these census tracts. There is a link on the IRS website, and we've included that link here, and the phone number if you have questions about that. DC also has a $10,000 per AFB refueling station, including ethanol and biodiesel and charging stations. So take advantage of that if you're in DC. Dominion Energy has as well a rebate program up to 50% for a level 2. And you can find that on their website. Maryland has a NEVI plan, but it's closed at the moment. I just looked. It closed in April already. But they have some other funding opportunities. They have other funding opportunities that you can apply for infrastructure. So take a look at their website, Maryland Energy Administration's, Maryland Energy Administration's website, and look at their grant programs for various alternative fuels. And if you have questions, come talk to me. That's it for me. Thanks.
All right, thank you, thank you. So a lot of good information, and we're going to jump right in. I got a quick couple slides, and then I'll have Jarrell to fill in some gaps. And Kim, if you can, okay, she's got it. Let me go back here. Okay. As much as I do this, I should be a pro at this, right? All right, can you all see my screen?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I'm just going to run through a few quick slides for you, for everyone. You heard a lot about, and I'll just skip over the biodiesel things. And some of you may know some of these things, some of you may not. I know that a lot of information is coming fast and furious in the industry. I am amazed at how much funding is coming out every day from both the public, the private, and the foundation sector, and so we're just all trying to keep up, trying to get as much as we can, and always they say try to get some, but don't try to get it all, because you try to get everything, then you get nothing. So
That's right.
Be strategic. Just a couple things. I'm not sure if we covered this, but I'm gonna just remind everyone. This is kind of like the first stop that everyone should go to if you're thinking about trying to find some of the incentives. We work very closely with the federal government, Department of Energy. This is a great resource if you're looking for utility incentives, federal and state incentives that may be out there. The Alternative Fuel Data Center has so much good information. If you're trying to find where a biodiesel station is, trying to find where EV charging or propane, natural gas, hydrogen station, if you're trying to find incentives for your project, all that stuff is really good. And we have a technical response service. So right here, so all those like really smart questions, Chris, that you're thinking about, like, oh, I wonder if Antoine knows this. So you can always go right there, and they provide really good information, and we can help you getting as much data as possible. So it's really good resources. There's a lot of mapping tools. They have case studies. They have publications. One of the things that we always pride ourselves on is there's a tool that we use called A-Fleet tool. So we'll talk about that in another webinar. We're going to do some training on that at our conference in October as well. So stay tuned for that. So just want to go over some of the federal things that you all may or may not know. So right now, the hotbed thing is the NEVI program. That's the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. So whether you're in DC, Maryland, or Virginia, all of the states in the District of Columbia have received money to put EV charging infrastructure out. And some of that is what we call community charging. So the main charging is going to go along highways and alternative fuel corridors, but then there are other opportunities for charging as well. And then just about every major federal agency has some type of grant funding that you can apply for beyond this $7.5 billion to do all different types of charging, because this is mainly USDOT highway funding to put charging along highways and then also in communities as well. And about a third of this is what they call designated to states based on their population, and the remainder is in different pockets of a couple billion or more each that you have to apply for. You can also look at applying for discretionary funding from your members of Congress and senators, and also your state and local lawmakers often have money that you can apply for projects as well. So if you've not been doing that, do it. We just applied for a couple $1 million for some charging and other things. We don't know if we're going to get it from our senators, but at least on the Maryland side, but we ask. Gotta ask. We don't ask, you don't get it. But these are the bipartisan infrastructure law, really important resource. The Inflation Reduction Act also has a lot of credits and incentives and lots of grant opportunities. Now, some of these grants require matching funds, right? So say if they give you $1 million, they may require you to match some of the, match it, so and you can match it with cash, or you can match it with materials, time. They're all different ways, and we spend a lot of time on that, and Jill spends a lot of time on trying to make sure when you apply for these grants you can do that. So it's really important. And we're working on grants all the time. I see my good buddy from DC, Al, I got your email. I will respond. You will get your information. I will get it done tonight, and I'll email you right after this call, or call you, or you can call me on my cell. It's been a crazy day. Internal Revenues Service has a lot of incentives to help out with infrastructure. You can see some of the great incentives. You can take a snapshot of that as well. 6% of depreciable costs up to $100,000 per item, 30% of depreciable costs up to $100,000 as well. So lots of, and you can see, look at this. It's all different fuels, right? Natural gas, propane, hydrogen, electricity, ethanol, or biodiesel of at least 20%. So this is really good. You see a lot of TV about this fuel, that fuel, but I want you to know there is something for everyone. There are incentives for every fuel. Our thing is to get low to zero emissions in our fueling sector, right? In our transportation sector. So please do your part. Take advantage of these. And if you don't know, call us. If we don't have the answer, we will connect you with someone that does as well. If you need help writing those grants, applying for some of those incentives, let us know. Whatever we can't do, there are people that you can retain that can help you win and have a good win rate, so really good. Want to just share a few other items here. This is the U.S. Department of Energy Tax Credit Eligibility Locator as well. There are a number of different tools that you can use for mapping, for sourcing, for finding out what grants and incentives are can pinpoint right down to your geographical area. So please utilize this tool. And then there's a lot of folks trying to help you as well. The federal government has so many people on standby, and they don't get enough calls. So call them. All right, please do that. Okay, please take advantage of some of these incentives. If you have questions, or if your accountant or your lawyer needs questions, have them call. If they don't respond, let us know, and we'll make sure that respective offices get back in touch with you. But take advantage of some of these, and some of these incentives as well. As you can see with this slide, if you are replacing fueling infrastructure in disadvantaged communities, it's an additional plus in terms of the incentives are even greater. All right, let's go through just a couple more slides for you. Jill went over the biodiesel incentive. Just want to go over these last couple slides in the DC area as well. So this is another incentive that you want to look at that can be really helpful if you're doing some infrastructure work in DC. So that's a good $10,000. And you can and the good thing about these incentives, you can layer them, meaning if you get one from one program, one from another program, whether it's state, whether it's DC or federal, you can stack those incentives as well, okay? Also, I would mention too, in terms of financing, at least right now on the DC side, you can go to the DC Green Bank for funding and financing. If you're for electrification projects, you know, in Maryland, they're a little more relaxed, so they can do help you with financing for projects beyond electrification from the Green Bank. The Green Bank is it's a secondary market kind of funder where they provide direct funding, but they're not a commercial institution. They're funders that are created by the District of Columbia. They have one. The federal government has created more funding for many green banks around the country. In fact, they just announced well over $5 billion in funding for to create more green banks around the country. So it's a great resource for non-commercial type of lending to do clean energy infrastructure projects. And some only do electric, but others, many of them do all the different fuels for their infrastructure. And they're a lot less rigorous in terms of their underwriting criteria than your traditional banks. They're not like a CDFI, a community development financial institution, but they're kind of a sister organization to them. All right. So take advantage of it. Lots of funding. There's no reason to not get your projects done. I just wanted to mention these last couple. Dominion Energy also has some incentives for level 2 programs. As I mentioned in the chat, we have a level 2 and level 3 program that complements these efforts. And so Joe and Blink charging, you can layer those incentives from Dominion. Pepco also has some incentives. BGE, which is Baltimore Gas and Electric, they also have some utility incentives. And whether you are looking at having those level 2 or level 3 chargers at a public site or private site, make sure that you use as many of these incentives as possible. I just want to get through a couple last items around technical assistance, really important. Some of this stuff is like relearning what you do in the industry. So there are a ton of folks that can help you, whether you're a school district, whether you are a rideshare operation, a transit agency, you're a fueling station. There's a lot of help out there. You can go to driveelectric.gov. You can also contact our office. You can also contact the technical response office. And then if you're looking for for-profit help, Jill, and we have a list of other consultants that are on our board. We have a website. If you go to our website under EV resources, we have an EV resource guide where we have a number of contractors and consultants that can help you move through the process of applying for these grants and helping you get your projects off the ground and execute it timely and effectively. So that's really important. Technical assistance is essential. I want to just say this one thing and this is the number for the technical response service. A lot of times I don't have a lot of hair, as you all can see. One of the things that drives me crazy is when our leaders, they think how easy it is to deploy biodiesel or EV charging, especially EV charging, because that's the kind of like the hot thing right now. And there's so much funding that's flowing, and people think all they have to do is buy the chargers and put them in the ground or put the level 2 up, and it's a lot more complicated than that. There's a lot of planning that must go into place. whether you're buying vehicles or especially if you're trying to put chargers in the ground. So you want to make sure you have a team of subject matter experts, or SMEs as we call them, that can help move you through the process. All right. So please make sure you ask questions. We don't always have all the answers, but we have people that do. And when they don't, we expand our network to people that can assist you in those efforts. All right. These are just some of the other incentives. You can go get many of these right off of our website, IRS website, and also the Alternative Fuel Data Center. You can see some of those on there. And so I'll end by just saying thank you. Looking forward, I know Darrell had a few items he wanted to, remarks he wanted to say, and give him a chance to say some things, and I will stop sharing. Okay. Darrell, did you have anything? Is he still on? He may have to. Oh, yeah, he's still on. Darrell, you had anything you wanted to add?
I don't see him on.
Yes.
There he is.
Yes. I don't know if you guys can see me, but thank you guys for joining. If you can just spread the word about this to any of your colleagues so we could make this a massive event.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I wanted to give you all a chance to ask any questions that you may have of our team, Joe or Jill, or myself.
Is this recorded, Antoine? I know
Yes,
it's live
it's
stream,
being,
but is it gonna be recorded?
yeah, it's being
So
recorded.
we can share it with others from your website.
Yep, they can go there, or they can go to LinkedIn or YouTube as well. Kim, this is gonna be, is this being streamed
Yes,
on
it
YouTube?
is.
Okay, so you go right, if you go to our website, go to any of our social media platforms, especially LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter, you can share this, and you can also rewatch this forever. So, forever. So I wanted to go just ask you all a few questions, and I'll go to Jill first. You know, one of the things that that's been really helpful is just trying to be a resource to these public and private institutions as they try to put this fueling infrastructure together. What would be what piece of advice would you have as they go down this road? Especially now, there's so much information that's hitting people. We went from a time where limited funding to seems like there's almost no end to the amount of funding out there. What would you say?
I
What
wish
are
there
the
were no
top
end
two
to
things
it.
you tell them to do first? You know.
Sure. I wish there were no end to it, but I think, you know, first, as I had mentioned, get registered with some of these sites so that when an opportunity does come up, that you're ready for it. I think also if you have a project that you have in mind to do, get a bid for it, or at least talk to some other folks who have done it to get an idea of how much it costs. And then, you know, share those ideas with some of us that are on this call, so we can keep it in mind as those opportunities come up. We'll have you on the forefront of our thought. I know Antoine has many opportunities come across his desk, but he can't apply for them all unless he knows that there's somebody interested and involved, has a project. So that's my 2 cents: is get registered with some of those those government websites, so you're ready to be an applicant.
Yeah, and let me also just dovetail on that. Great point. The If you ever are working on an application, and if it aligns with our focus, one, think about having us as a partner. Two, let us know if you need a letter of support, because those really matter on applications. And so you want to do that. And if you never hesitate to ask your local, state, or federal elected officials to do letters of support for you as well. Those are really helpful when you're trying to apply for grant applications. And when you do win, make sure you let them know too, right? It's really
That's right.
important. So
They like those press events.
yeah, so please make sure they know about it. Joe, I wanted to come over to you, Joe, in terms of the putting these chargers in, one of the challenges is that it can be very overwhelming to try to decide what can go first. And then also the discipline for planning. Because as a charging company, you can only go as fast as they return the paperwork and they give you yeses and nos for approval. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean that's correct. I mean it's it sort of goes in two phases. One is, of course, getting to some form of agreement, between us and the property owner. We we're not leasing your property, but we're installing, having the rights to install the equipment and operate it and maintain it on your property. So there's a form of agreement to, set that up and that relationship. Depending on how long that takes, that's really up to the property owner. If they want to sign up today, then we're more than willing to also countersign today and then get the project moving. The part two of that, of course, is the utility company. Oftentimes, especially if it's a fueling, center and we're going to install a few DC fast chargers, that takes a bit of coordination and work with the utility company. So, but we take care of all of that. As soon as the contract's signed, we do what's called a new service application, where we work with the utility company to bring in the new power, and then we do all of the engineering and permitting and construction from there. So that's these, especially fast charging projects, can, we're sort of averaging between 6 to 9 months on the development of those, because of generally the amount of time it takes to get everyone moving in the right direction. So faster we can get to an agreement, of course, faster we can get the equipment on the ground, but not everything is in our control, and we try our best to mitigate any issues that come up.
Thank you.
I have a question for Joe, if I may.
Sure, sure.
Joe, I work with a lot of retailers and have one that's, of course, interested in EV charging. A lot of the funding seems to be on corridors. What advice do you have to somebody who isn't on a corridor or right next to a highway, for example, more of an inner city or off the beaten path? Are there opportunities for them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, oftentimes if it's a retail center and it's too far from the highway, then we may recommend like a medium speed, or a high speed level 2 charger, where people will still be able to get a decent amount of energy. And we may install those first as a test of utilization. And then once we see utilization there, then, if it's high enough, then we'll consider, installing that DC fast charger as the next step.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're looking at like the average daily traffic counts along the roadways. Kind of once it breaks that like 20,000 mark per day, then if the place is close enough, then it might be a good candidate for fast charging. So it all depends on what type of property it is, but we would at least start with something. We do a lot of retail centers like that.
And is it my understanding that those higher speed level 2 chargers are fairly nominal to put in terms of expense, or are they expensive?
It's sort of like about the same. I mean, level 2 technology nowadays is roughly about the same. You do have to bring in a bit more power. So like if you have to bring a new service, of course, that's going to be more expensive. But if you can connect to the building or something like that, then there's ways to reduce that cost. But like through Dominion's program, they do have a great program running where they cover up to 50% of the service and the make ready, and then you pay for the rest of it over a 10-year period of time. So you do still pay for it, in a sense, where we would make that investment for the property owner.
Okay, good to know.
Awesome. So why don't you give a few folks, I want to find out if anyone on the call has been working on any projects related with gas stations right now, and pitching them on converting they're offering EV charging or biodiesel, and how have those conversations gone? What have been some of the discussion points? Um, any any thoughts on that? Anything you want to share? Anyone have any of those conversations trying
I
to
see
get?
some questions in the chat. Do you want-
Okay, all right. We do have two. I'm going to come over there in 1 second. But can any of you share any of your conversations? I know Jill talked about some of the immediate questions that people were asking her about the incentives for properties that are not along highways. Any other challenges or any other conversations that people have had related to trying to get this charging in other places? And any conversations with any gas station owners, whether they're public or private. I know, Al, you're working with DC. You got a lot of stations you guys have identified. You have any feedback on some of the station owners, both public and private, some of the common themes you're hearing?
Yeah, no, we definitely have a lot of stations, gas stations in DC, and through DDOT, which is running the NEVI procurement that's happening right now. There have been some gas stations owners who have indicated their interest in wanting to host EV chargers. It's not always possible because some of the stations have a small footprint, and there are things under the ground like gas tanks, and you can't, have everything super close together all the time. Also, I think DDOT is looking for amenities close by, as a preference for the siting of NEVI chargers. And, not every gas station has a bathroom or a convenience store. So, that's another factor to consider. And, EV charging takes longer than filling up your gas tank. So you have to think about whether people, want to hang out at that location for, 30 minutes or whatever they would need to charge up. But, there's definitely some possibilities, at gas stations or near gas stations throughout the district.
Thank you. And that's a good point I want to share with you all. I know that many of you are in the biodiesel and EV space. As you're pitching current gas station owners or fueling station owners that don't offer biodiesel or EV charging, he raises a really good point that I share with people all the time. And we'll probably have on our next forum, we're gonna have a couple of folks who've actually deployed both of these fuels technologies at traditional fueling stations, and so we can hear directly from them some of the successes. But the point I wanted to get to is that even with gasoline right now, for all of you who know about gas stations and gas station owners that are on here, you all can agree with the fact that you don't make all the money on selling gas. It's that convenience store, it's the repair shop, it's all those other items beyond just selling gas that help you make additional money, right? And so as you all are pitching people about these fuels, some owners may be thinking about expanding. And there are some folks who we'll try to have on the next call as well that have incentives for you fixing the building and putting a convenience store that may have some financing for that as well. But help them to understand that when you're talking about those numbers, they may not always make as much money as they currently do on the selling EV charging or biodiesel, but they can make additional resources by money by some of the other things that they'll be able to do as well. And so just that, you know, especially those who are in the EV charging space, you're going out there, it's new, it's even newer. Even it's newer in the marketplace than biodiesel, even though the first car was electric, but it's not been in mass use the way it has been here. So
So
please
Can I add
share
to
that.
that, Antoine?
Yes.
Just with regard to the biofuels, and I will say with ethanol in particular, when you have it less expensive, you're gonna notice that you're gonna draw from the competition. So retailers where there've been E15 and E85 added, I know particularly from some of the retailers I've worked with, that if Sheetz or Royal Farms have added it in either Maryland or Virginia in particular, that it drives and they're offering that product at a less expensive price, it's going to draw attention away from the nearby retailers. So that one-off competition is, you know, is real. It's impacted some of my retailers, and so they've decided to go ahead and add those biofuels to their retail portfolio as well. But it takes money for these smaller retailers, and that's why we wanted them to know about some of these funding opportunities. But with biodiesel, I think what's driving it more at a retail level is having those medium and heavy duty fleets that will agree to use some of these higher blends. So the decarbonization of these delivery vehicles, it has to be kind of an interest in moving towards these cleaner burning technologies that will drive it more at a retail level.
All
as
right.
opposed to a fleet level.
We got about 3 questions in the chat. I want to take those before we give you all a chance to give some closing remarks. So each of you, I'm not sure if you have any can address this issue. What is the need for workforce training in your in biodiesel and in electrification?
You want me to handle that first?
Sure, you go first.
Really, biodiesel is handled the same as diesel fuel. So if you're trained to handle diesel fuel, you'll be trained to handle biodiesel. It's non-toxic, but it's been usually blended. By the time it gets to retail level, it's been blended with diesel fuel. So you handle it very much the same way as you do traditional fuels. So any of that existing training is going to play in hand with your experience. So there's no additional training needed.
All right, Joe, you want to jump in there? I know we need some new folks trained how to repair those chargers and the vehicles. But
Well,
you
the
want to go
vehicles
ahead?
are a different story on B100 though, but that's another story. I'll let Joe go.
All right.
So I don't see the question in the chat.
It says, what is the need for workforce training for your firm or in the industry?
Gotcha. I mean, we actively are helping electricians around the country, you know, kind of get their foot in the door when it comes to EV charging. You know, certainly the long-term operations and maintenance will be handled by us. Anything, you know, if there is staff on site, there's simple things that can be done to reset the machines and that sort of thing, and we'll provide that training to any staff that you have to help out when needed. But any of the heavy duty lifting will be done by an electrician, and there are programs throughout the country right now that are certifying them. You know, NEVI in particular requires certification for those installers. You know, so if anyone's interested in that, I'll happy to share.
Awesome. Thank you. And our office is working to develop a couple of partnerships right now with Prince George's Community College and the University of District Columbia to get folks trained, get some good courses for EV technicians as well. We probably need to look at that for tech training for biodiesel, because my hope is within the next 24 months, all of the fueling stations in our region will offer biodiesel and EV charging. So we're going to get there. We're going to fight like you know what to make sure that happens. So let's go to, we have another 2 questions. How much biodiesel is available in the retail stations in this area? I'm thinking of Frederick County, Yes, what are the issues raised by station owners about adding biodiesel? And is most of the diesel in this area B5 or B10?
B0, I think is what Joanne's
She said
saying.
B0,
Hi,
but I'm
Joanne.
assuming she meant B10, but
I
I
don't
don't.
think so. I
Oh,
think
okay.
she means B0, but
Okay.
you can chime in. But I think what her point is that there really isn't a lot of higher blend biofuels in the area other than through fleets. And Joanne, feel free to take it off mute and ask your question. But I think what she's driving at here is most of the biofuel use in the region is at the fleet level and not necessarily at the retail level. And we want to change that. And that's why we're hosting this webinar, is to raise awareness. So, but I do want to speak to her point that any of the fleets and any of the retailers can get access to biodiesel. It's just a matter of asking for it. There isn't a supply issue. Some people have raised that as a concern. It really isn't. You just have to be willing to get into a contract with the suppliers. And as far as I think I answered the question about how much of it is B5, it unfortunately up to B5, Joanne, as you know, it doesn't have to be disclosed because it's the same as diesel fuel. But so it's hard to know how much of it's up to B5, but the likelihood is probably pretty small in this area. So we're hoping that no new folks will be intentionally asking for it to do these higher blends.
Yeah, part of the reason I'm asking is because I was wondering if you all consider Frederick County part of your bailiwick, especially now that you're in Baltimore.
Yeah, we do. In fact, we were at an event last month where we helped Blink Charging get some chargers in Frederick County, and I connected Jill with the gentleman who's over sustainability and fleets for Frederick County, and I think there've been, I'm not sure if they met yet, but I know there's been a couple email exchanges, so hopefully we can get some help for Frederick County as well. I know they're very interested for biodiesel for fleets.
Great, because
Yeah,
I've
I
just
have
been
that.
invited to be on an advisory committee out here, the Mobilize Frederick group. And that's one thing that I want to help happen. So I'm going to look to you guys then as a resource for us.
Happy to
Yeah.
jump on a call anytime. And I have reached out to the gentleman, and he has asked about the Optimus B100 system, which we've talked about on other webinars, but he's not ready to take advantage of some of the funding that we have available this summer. So we may be looking at another round for him.
So let us know, Joanne, if you need me to show up virtually or in person. If you have food, I come. I'll be there.
I know where to find you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Good
I
to
love
see you,
going.
Joanne.
And we have some members out with various technologies out in that area that are doing some great things. So we love to stop by Colonial and some of the others out in Frederick County. We do have another couple questions here from Jamie, from Mr. Austin from Prince George's County Schools. He said, what is the average cost of diesel versus biodiesel these days? Does anyone have a list of K through 12 schools that are using biodiesel fuel for school buses? I just had a tour of their facilities about 2 weeks ago with their transportation director or manager. And, you know, a lot of these school districts are, you know, they have, you know, 100% of their vehicles or more or close to it are diesel. So they're looking at ways in which they can use biodiesel. So Jill, are you able to share with
So I don't have a list off the top of my head, but I could probably get some in our area. There are some school bus fleets that are using it. I've had more recent interest from Prince George's County as well, asking about it recently, but there are a number of school bus fleets that are using biodiesel blends. But to answer your question about the cost of biodiesel, is typically sold about the same price, but it fluctuates up and down, you know, give or take. It depends on when you buy it. around the price of diesel fuel, but I can't guarantee guarantee that. It's really whatever's negotiated between you and your supplier, but on average, it's typically the same price, or a nickel to a quarter more at best compared to diesel fuel.
And
Or
I
a
would
nickel
just,
to a quarter less, depending on when you buy it.
yeah, I would just say to a couple, oh, okay, study done by Howard County. Okay, well, we'll have that. We'll talk about that,
Oh,
and
yeah. Thank
we'll
you,
talk
Jen.
about that
Appreciate it.
on one of our upcoming forums. I love for
Oh, yeah.
having some others to speak on that. But let me just take, before we wrap up, I want to give each of you a chance. Oh, see, good. Thank you, Miss Joanne. Great source. Awesome.
Yeah.
I just want to share with you all, we had an Earth Day reception last night. And one of the things that I do both publicly and privately is talk about the need to use low to zero emissions for these school buses. So Jamie, thank you for sharing that, because the air on that school bus that's diesel is actually worse than standing behind that bus. So anything that we can do to get our kids on low to zero emission school buses, we need to do that expeditiously. So that's a conversation for another day, but I want to share that with you all. We have a lot of kids, and the worst thing is the kids that are on legacy buses and seniors that are on legacy buses that are powered by diesel. So that's why I'm pushing hard to make sure that we get EV charging and biodiesel in more places in our region. A couple of the local government officials will be rolling out legislation requiring these fuels in their area. So you'll be hearing that in the next 30 days. We've been quietly working on that. And so, and I shared with them, they need to offer even more incentive at the local level and mandate that. So you'll hear more about that coming out soon. I want to give our two speakers a chance to give some closing comments, since Joe went first. Joe, we'll let you go first for the close.
Gosh, first of all, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it, and listening in and asking good questions. We're here for you to be a resource, so please take advantage of that opportunity. And I hope you will consider looking into some of these clean burning technologies. So thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, I echo that. I appreciate everybody taking the time today to learn more. This is an important topic, especially to us. I think it's important as we take steps to try to make the world a better place. So, no matter how big or small your property is or what your needs are, I feel like we could probably find something that'll help. And not only the planet, but also drive more business to your property as well. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and happy to help. Thank you.
All right, and if you're in the DC area, come on down today between 4:30 and 6:45. We're going to be at 151 M Street Southeast, right next door to the Washington Nationals baseball stadium. We'll be out there. We're showcasing all different type of fuel vehicles today. So come on out. We'll be out there. The weather is gorgeous. We're really excited. And so I just want to say to all of you, thank you. We will have two more of these coming up. We have one in May and one in June. And one of those will probably be in person as well. So we'll let you know about that too. So looking forward to seeing you all. Get involved. Every day is Earth Day. There's something that all of us can do. Let's educate. Let us continue to partner. You have a lot of support and resources at your disposal. Don't feel that you have to do it alone. That's one of the things we want to share with you. You do not have to go it alone. Don't be afraid to ask. If we don't, as I stated earlier, if we don't have the answer, we'll help you find the answer. Without further ado, you all have a great day and talk with you soon. If you're not a member, become a member of Greater Washington Region Clean Cities as well. You can go right to our website and become a member right now. And happy Earth Day. Bye-bye.
Happy Earth Day.
Thank you.